Hey everybody, it's PenMark, and welcome to my next mini-series where I'm going to show you how I draw dragons. I'm going to show you what I do when I go through the process of research and how I come up with these different types of dragons. Because they're mythical beasts, there's different ways you can do research. So, for starters, we're going to do reptiles, because it's the most common way of doing dragons. I have two examples here already. You're going to watch me do a few more, and you'll get to see in the future how I combine the research with my own decisions, and let's see what kind of dragons we can make. So this lizard here has some important shapes that I might want to use for my dragons. So beginning the sketch, it's about form. It's not about the fancy details of his scales or the folds. It's not about that at first. It's about the basic form, and that means basic shapes. So when I begin my sketch, I am not going to be worried about being perfect. Especially if it's something new, your sketch won't be perfect. That's how you learn. So he's got a triangle head as it gets closer to his nose. Got the ridges on his back there. And I'll put little lines like this to show, or to help me think as I draw. Sketching is thinking with your pencil. So you can do this on paper, or on a tablet like I'm doing. Whatever you're comfortable with, stick to that. Because when you're learning, it's good to do it in small steps. Don't overwhelm yourself with a new subject and a new medium, and then try to do the biggest picture you've ever done. Take it in small steps. If you want to focus on a new media, do that, but work with a subject you're comfortable with. If you're learning a new subject, work with a media you're comfortable with. And if you're brand new, never drawn before, work in small steps. And doing basic shapes is a good way to start. I do this with every single picture I draw. I stick with basic shapes. So right now, my sketch isn't quite the iguana lizard that we see here, but it's getting there. And I just slowly draw simple lines of the basic shapes I notice. The details and fancy parts, that comes later. And I'm going to have a lot of fun drawing this guy because he's got a lot of interesting textures. I've never owned a lizard, so seeing all those like smooth scales, it's really cool. Okay, so I'll put the basic triangles for his little spines. And I'm noticing they start out small and get larger as you go back. And they seem to kind of push forward, actually. So I'm going to have the little triangles slightly arced forward a bit. It's probably a good defense mechanism for them. There we go, and it gets smaller again. And that's a good point right there, I learned. It goes up, down, along his back. And I can use that. Because I never would have thought about that when doing a dragon. I wouldn't have thought of doing that. So, that's the point of research. You want to learn the rules first, and then break them as you please. So I'm learning how scales look, how folds flow along his neck and shoulders. I'm learning as I draw. And later on, when I want to do the dragons, I've built a repertoire, drawing all these lizards, so I'll know little puzzle pieces that I can put together however I want. That's kind of how it works. Like I'm noticing that his mouth actually seems to go pretty far back. I wouldn't have thought of putting the mouth, I'll draw it here, past his eye. That's pretty interesting. I wouldn't have immediately thought about that detail when drawing a dragon. And I'm noticing how there are groups of scales to kind of show the major form. So keeping track of that as I sketch, I'll just draw like a little barrier to know, okay, The basic form of this guy is that he's got his muscle groups kind of sectioned off, and the scales flow around that. So your sketch might look messy at first, that's fine. I've mentioned before, I do this to keep track of information, not so much to look fancy at first. Because later on, it's easy to take an eraser, or for me, to lower the opacity on this layer, and draw over it, and then I'm following my own information here, and I can make it look fancy. But right now, I'm learning proportions. I'm learning where things go. Over time, this process becomes kind of easy and, well, rather, it becomes simple. You know the steps, and you just kind of go on autopilot. You learn, okay, got to start paying attention to this form as I draw. And after a little cleanup here, I'll erase some of my sketch marks, and we've got my first draft sketch for this lizard. And later on I can go in and do cleanup. But this taught me a lot already. It's been a long time since I've drawn dragons, so let's move on to this next guy up here, the Komodo dragon. I think the big detail about him is noticing how his legs support his weight, looking at his form. I'm going to get his basic shape. Starts low with his tail, goes up, keeps going up as it gets to his shoulders, then goes straight down for his arm. I notice some negative space under him right there, so I'm going to do a little bit of negative space, keeping track of that shape. A little bit of a gap there, and then the rest of his form goes down where his tail and his leg are. And it really is as simple as that. I say that, but we all know how hard drawing is. But the principle is simple. Just do a bunch of squares and circles, because those are easy to fix. It's easy to correct a circle or a square. And when you put your circles and squares in the right place, you've got a skeleton to draw your details on top of. Because I find it really interesting that the Komodo dragon has his back leg kind of like dragging on the ground behind him. It's kind of creepy, which I might want to incorporate into the dragon I draw. So, okay, and some of those shapes are kind of complicated because they're being foreshortened, and this is good practice. You get to learn how to make that triangle look like it's moving towards the camera. As you can see, I'm starting to darken some of these lines just by habit. And already, using the sketches I did below, I'm getting ideas of what to do on this dragon's face. If this were a dragon, I would already know, okay, I gotta have a line there, his eye will be somewhere here, and going off of the bottom sketch, maybe his mouth goes all the way back here. His mouth goes past his eye. And I can go in with an eraser and clean it up a little. And go, okay, there we go. So, this is why sketching is so useful. And when you're using reference for your pictures, you don't want to necessarily copy the pose for your character, because it kind of makes it lazy for you. You start to rely on the picture to do all the work for you. You want the pictures that you use as reference to be tips. You want them to be reminders. You don't want it to be a copy. So I'm learning how this guy moves around the ground, how he supports his weight, his posture, all of that. And then I'll apply it to dragons. So I think you get the gist of it. And next time we will be applying all these tips to draw dragons. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what you think. If you liked it, let me know, and I will respond as soon as I can. I will see you guys next time, and we'll be drawing actual dragons. This is PenMark, and thanks for watching.